That's Eddie Harris with Sham Time. I love this song, especially since I played it uh, recently when the first round of debates. I played it for the first time, and it seems so appropriate. Some things are just a sham. And that's how Eddie Harris imagined it. Okay, so let me tell you what's going on. And we'll have to do this. This is something that has to be addressed together. And that is that my technical system has been acting up lately. And sometimes, especially lately, I get no sound. So I have to figure out, does that mean I need a new system? If I do, I'll tell you, and I'll hope that you can participate in helping me get my act together electronically so that we don't have this happening anymore. I don't know very much about electronic things. I don't. I'm legendary for that. I just don't know how these things work. And once I do learn how the system operates, I never expected to fail. But this is what is happening to me lately. It's just been some time-ish in the way it chooses to operate. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's not. And we are in Florida, of course. And here, like today, there's a warning about an approaching storm, rainstorm, thunderstorms. And it's never good when these things happen because all kinds of other things start to happen. And perhaps I'm getting advance warning of my system getting ready to collapse. So anyway, we'll figure out how this is going to work. But let's proceed. This is one of the reasons I miss being in New York. I knew so many people in New York who knew how to get these things fixed. Here, right now, they are missing in action. So you have to depend on people, and I hate to be stereotypical, but most of the people that I have depended on here to get things done aren't really that dependable. Okay, enough of the complaining. Let's get on with this program today. And what we're looking at, of course, is yesterday. How are you reacting to the most recent round of so-called debates? Now, I don't call them debates. I am a student of debates. I've been in debates for a long time, even as a child, because debates were central to our government. There's always a debate of some sort or the other, especially when major legislative action is contemplated. First will come the debate. And so even as a kid listening to these things, they were very fascinating to me. And my father insisted that we should listen to governmental debates as part of, something he thought that we ought to know. He was a very political guy. So you get an appreciation early on, at least we did, of debates. I haven't seen one yet in the United States that comes to resemble the debates I heard as a child. So I don't know why they insist on calling these the show and tell or the Q&A that they're doing debates. They're not. So I want to find out whether it hits you the same way, whether you find that the arrangement is substantive enough as a political, rite of passage. You listen to these things and you say, they're debating. Is this a debate? I'm waiting still for the debate. There is no debating going on. The arrangement that we are seeing essentially is, and we have an extraordinary number of people who are, quote, debating, but essentially they are set up on the stage and they are being questioned by people who are affiliated with the news organization that is hosting the debate. And you see all kinds of conflicts there. There is no independence there. There's nothing there to assure us as viewers that this whole thing is very carefully thought out, and particularly to prevent even the slightest hint of contradiction. But we must remember that these debates are hosted by news organizations who ultimately will look for and would insist on getting a piece of the pie. Then the pie would be the pie that comes every election year. Advertising budgets are key to how coverage, in some cases, is done. A news organization looking to the Democratic Party, for example, for a chunk of change, and this is big money. This is part of the budget in turn for a media organization. They look to the political outlets, the political parties, for support, financial support via advertising. So when we see people sitting behind a table or a desk, and they are the ones doing the questioning, we have to keep in mind they're not going to ask questions that in any way seriously will compromise a candidate or in any way would cause friction between the news organization and the party. This is part of the cooperative process. And at the end of it, it's money. It's about money influencing the tone of everything. Money influencing how questions are asked, what questions are asked. The questioners don't have to necessarily be supervised, but they know very well what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to embarrass the party, although they would insist that they're asking sufficiently difficult questions. But, you leave it to your own imagination. Would these questioners, these people acting as hosts of the debate, as they call it, do you not think that they have, even if it is not directly expressed, they know what they're supposed to do and not supposed to do? They are to do nothing to jeopardize those millions of dollars that will come to them if they play ball by not embarrassing the party. not being too hard on in asking questions. So everybody automatically knows what they're supposed to do, and more importantly, what they're not supposed to do. They are there to remove the possibility that the candidates would actually be talking to each other, which is what a true debate will require. That a person would ask a question of another person, and that the question is known only to the person asking the question. But here you have this effort being made to give people the impression that this process is beyond, it is a way above reproach. It's clean. It's not. So we know that whether they say it is hosted by CNN or hosted by NBC or hosted by so-and-so, everybody plays ball. And the most important thing is to appear as if the entire process is beyond reproach. The press, media, the organizations that are co-hosting these debates can, walk around proud that they have done their great civic and journalistic duty. They have presented to the public a debate. It turns out in this stretch, the debate involves 20 people. Now, how are you going to do that and call it a debate? And nobody's asking questions of anybody else, which you would expect in a regular debate, which is a challenge. There's no challenging of the people. Everybody wants it nice and quiet, so they remove the ability, which would normally exist in a regular debate, remove that from the very participants in what they're calling a debate. They will not question each other. They will give that instead, they'll give that role to representatives from the media organization hosting the debate. I've never seen anything like that. It is outrageous. It is more of a show and tell. It is more of a Q&A. At best, that's what I would call it, a Q&A. Because there is an automatic attenuation of the impact that should normally exist in such a scenario where people directly confront, directly address each other. And then we see the capacity of the person being asked a question to answer it. I thought about it, of course, the first time it happened, and then I said, well, maybe they're doing this because they are very tight on time, and they want order more than anything else. They want an orderly situation. And so they've changed up the dynamic of a debate. And so the questioners who come from the media organization hosting it know exactly what they're supposed to do. They're in control. Therefore, it's a setup. We are being robbed of a number of things, but mostly information. We're being robbed of an opportunity to truly evaluate the qualifications of a candidate. The stage is too crowded. People don't have the time that they need to respond comprehensively to a question. People are not actually challenging each other. They're prohibited from doing that for the most part. And the media organizations have to answer why it is that they are playing this role. They themselves are taking a partisan position when they arrogate to themselves the right to regulate questioning. They're not supposed to do that. What they ought to do instead is we should have an independent, a truly independent person just maintaining the traffic, just making sure that things don't get totally out of hand, because in a debate, you follow the rules of a debate. But it was very irritating, it still is to me, that all of this effort is being poured into this sleight of hand that they're calling a debate. This is not a debate. And we should not accept that it is a debate. It is a show and tell. It is a Q&A at best, but it is not a debate. And yet, all parties concerned will tell us about how important an example this is of democracy. When the candidates don't have an opportunity to question each other about issues that matter. Everybody has to march to the beat of the media organizations' drummers. They ask the questions. How do they get to ask the questions? Then they should be, the public should be clear that this is not a debate. Don't call it that. You could call it just show and tell. I'll go along with that. I'll say okay. You could call it a Q&A, fine. But for heaven's sakes, don't call this catastrophe a debate. You know, don't fool the public. Don't run a game. And in the end, what we're seeing is the result of all parties agreeing to perpetrate a fraud based on money. Based on money, all parties have a vested interest in the conduct of this thing. All parties agree to call it a debate. And so you have, with 10 people on stage at a time, you can do the simple math. How much face time, how much time does a person get to challenge other contestants, which is what a typical debate would involve? And you have it, and you can say, well, at least if you want to involve the media organization directly into the debate, that person or those persons would simply regulate so that things don't go crazy. But they're not supposed to be in it. They're not party to the debate. That's the whole point here. This is supposed to be a freewheeling exercise with the media organization that is hosting it out of it. Let the candidates, they're grown, they can handle it, they can regulate themselves, they know the rules, and you conduct a true debate so that people could understand the different points of view. And you can see how or where the weak spots are in anybody's argument. That's a true joy of listening to a debate or watching a debate. And it's just too sad that a country so advanced is afraid, terrified. Well, just let it be a debate, and an exchange and challenging of ideas. There's no reason, and I'm not just trying to be picky. There's no reason that a news organization should interpose itself in a process that is so widely touted as an example of the spirit of democracy. Why are you afraid to have people ask each other questions? What is the fear of that? We really need to have some serious community debates. They're fun, and you appreciate the intellectual capacity of the individuals involved. They get right down to business, to asking relevant questions. They're prepared to defend their point of view. And the public can better appreciate what the philosophical differences are of any particular party. But we have this cowardly thing, and they're making a big deal of it. It's very exasperating that you're making such a big deal of the fact that your performance level is so low. And what we have here in this dog and pony show is the best you can do, especially at a time like this, and especially in the context that we're talking about, where the nation is in a state of flux. We need clarity. We need to have direction. We need to appreciate the thoughts of people who are in leadership positions. And we need all of this so that we can, in turn, be very responsible in the way we exercise our political power, because that's what is happening. That's going to be happening soon. The people will then participate in this process by voting. But based on what information? And this information that should come directly from the candidates' mouths would give us that counterbalance. We are able to weigh how people are interpreting the moment we're in, and how they choose or plan to respond to the moment we're in. It's a very cowardly piece of business. They've palmed off on us now twice. There are 2 more so-called debates to go, and we will have had no appreciation when it's all over, really, about the fine points. We would not see people moving away from the pack intellectually. We will not hear brand new ideas, which would take some time to fully develop in the course of a debate. where a person sees the weak spot in the other person's argument and tackles it. We're not appreciating this business of a debate at all. And I think it is very, very dishonest to call these bouts debates. But just the same, that's just my opinion. I think it is important that people call attention to it because it's a sleight of hand. It is dishonesty being perpetrated right in your face. That's not a debate. I could take you to small countries where top performances all the time, and this is part of their regular routine. When you have a debate, everybody could listen and appreciate both sides of an issue and then make up their own minds. For some reason, in the United States, there's a great deal of trepidation associated with real debates. Either they think that the combatants don't know or don't have the skills of debate, or they don't want people to get into the messy business of untangling frauds when we get to know the truth of an issue through debate. But that's why you have debates. That's why you have debates. So the media are not exempt. They are very much a part of the fraud. The candidates themselves, they have no real control in the matter, except ahead of time when they can confront the expected way that the so-called debate will be handled, and they now become part of it because they're candidates running for president. They don't want to miss out on the opportunity to talk to people, even if it might just be for 30 seconds. What is this? But anyway, round 2 goes on tonight. The second batch of 20 candidates will appear in the same venue, the Fox Theater in Detroit, and we'll see what comes of it, such as it is. I just wanted to let you know this is not what they're saying it is. This is not a debate. It's not a debate. Remember that. Okay, so based on the performance of the folks yesterday, I mean, were you satisfied that with what was learned? Did you learn something that troubled you? Did you feel that any particular candidate was exceptional? Did you think that the process was, in fact, useful to this idea of it having an impact on the minds of the public and helped them come to a decision about the presidential race and which candidate or candidates distinguished themselves? Let me know. Let's talk. 888-874-4888. We have some time and we should use it wisely, talking about questions that you want to ask and issues that you want to raise. 888-874-4888. You see, these things are important to discuss. People start at a whole different point, Well, we saw the debate. Let's start there. No, let's start where we ought to start and raise the question about whether, in fact, we witnessed a debate. yet again, they pull this thing, and they pull the sleight of hand, and we have to uh, go with what the situation is. They give us a situation to react to, and that's what we have to do. Lincoln from Mount Vernon, who's starting us off today.
Hey, you, Trees.
Hey, Lincoln, what's up?
All right. First of all, I want to take a little different approach, and I want to enumerate and define something. One of the things is, and this is in reference to last night and all the previous debates, and I think also, in terms of historically these so-called debates, they are conducted like we the people respond to them like we're going to a boxing match or like a talent show. And two boxers are boxing, and we are rooting for one of the two, and then one of them we call a winner, and at the end, one of them walk away with a huge purse, but the people rooting for them did not gain anything from those huge purses, no matter how many millions these boxers made. And like
All right,
a talent
but
show,
rather than be, we are under the crunch of time. So could you take us directly to where you want us to appreciate your argument today?
So that's what I'm saying. So from these debates, we all say, who are the winners? And we are discussing this like it's a match. The next thing is, it's not, we keep saying a debate. It is not a debate, and it should not be a debate. And historically, it should not have been. It should be about a job interview. And we, the people, are the ones interviewing them.
But it's not. Lincoln, it is not. It is not an interview. It won't be an interview for some time. Let's deal with where we are. Where we are is that you have a bunch of people who are running. Are you hearing me?
I lost you for a minute. I couldn't hear you for quite a little bit.
See, this thing is all messed up. We need to get it squared away. It's happening way too often.
I missed some of what you said.
But anyway,
I lost you.
Okay, I'm saying that for what it is, we're talking about what it is we have to work with in the meantime. What are we working with? It's the debate, what they're calling a debate. Fine. We understand and appreciate all the downsides. But in the meantime, what did you find useful? What didn't you find useful in this debate?
First, I thought that at most times they were saying what they thought the people want to say. And at most times, I did not hear them concretely saying how they would go about their objectives. It's like saying to the people, we need hope.
See, this is the issue. The issue is nobody had time. When you have 30 seconds or at most a minute, you don't have the time to explain yourself or your position on anything.
Which means that we're going back to saying that it is really not about a debate, and it's really a show. And that's what I was trying to say in the beginning. And we are continuing to participate in this and to encourage this. We encourage this show.
So what should we do? What should be the reaction?
Maybe we should boycott these things and say to them, unless you change the way you do it. You see, what good will it do if candidates are asking themselves questions amongst themselves? We are the people, they're all hiring them. And it's our questions that's important. So therefore, one of the things we should do is we should have leaders of, say, communities and various movements like anti-war movements, reparation movements, etc. And those are, and we should pick people from the streets, a bunch of people from the streets, a bunch of people from maybe some universities, a bunch of people from some of these movements, organizations, and those are the people who should question them. Something similar to what happened when Bill Clinton called in on WBAI, and he was ruffled because he was getting questions he didn't expect, because he was thinking that he was going to be encountering his sycophants. And I remember even you saying at the time that you wish you were the one, because you would have even questioned him harder, and because there's a lot of questions that he should have been asked. And so,
well, a whole bunch of things happened in that. I've never talked about it, but in fact, it was extremely shameful what happened to, even for Bill Clinton. There was something that happened at WBAI. I took the call from Clinton's office that the president would like to be interviewed and so forth. We said, okay. And that was a function that I thought properly belonged to the news director, Jose Santiago. And I spoke with Jose Santiago. I was the manager at the time, and I told him that the president will be calling in, and this is an opportunity to do news. He is the news director. Who better to do it? And he said, okay, and went in at the appropriate time into the master to take the questions and to conduct an interview with Bill Clinton, because we have a very competent news director. But someone at that time flew into the news, the studio, physically grabbed the microphone away from the news director, and decided it was her opportunity to conduct an interview, and did a rotten job, most of all disrespecting the president on the air, and did not, in fact, leave Jose any room to ask his questions, which would have been part of the news program. So people don't know that, but that's what happened. The studio was invaded by this person who physically grabbed the mic away and sat down and took charge of the time that the president was expecting to talk to our news director, and I personally arranged that the news director should do the interview representing the station. I would have had no problem with Jose with it, because he was such a competent person. But for the purpose of taking advantage of an opportunity to elevate herself, she destroyed an opportunity and decided that she owned that time. And that's what happened. People do these kinds of things all the time. I'm not a Clinton person, but the president of the United States is the president of the United States. And you should have enough manners and professionalism to know how to conduct yourself in an interview. And instead of taking the moment to show off how brazen and nasty you could be, because you're now enjoying your own private moment, having invaded the studio and taken it over. That's what happened. People are under the impression that this was a WBAI event. No, it wasn't.
So, Yatrice,
I don't want to go through that we're short on time, so ask me something very quickly that I could
No,
answer.
let me just say this quickly. It was really, really wonderful that I asked you this question, because now a lot of people will know what really happened, which they should have known. So it was a good thing. And you were very euphemistic, and you said a person. You should have said it was Amy Goodman. Why say a person? Yeah, so don't be euphemistic. So we know what we're dealing with,
No,
you know.
not,
And
let me make myself clear. Let
Friday,
me
I
make
will call.
myself clear. I was very clear about what should have happened, who had the authority, not even me. I exempted myself from that. We have a news director. Let the news director handle it because it was news. And to have done something like that was not only just outrageously unprofessional to our fellow broadcaster, but even more so to the President of the United States. And then, you strut around wearing the badge that, look what I did to him, not caring whether you dragged the name of the institution into the mud by your egregious conduct. So I've never talked about it until now. But that is what I mean. When people believe that it's time to be, it's a star moment. And the last thing they're thinking about is how it reflects on the organization that you're working for and your colleagues who you see every day. And I was perfectly okay when the call came in, which I took, and I went immediately to our news director. I could have done the interview, but it was not my place. We have a news director. Let the news director handle it. That's my thinking. But it was used to great advantage, and it was widely said, oh, what a brave thing. No, you're a rotten, ill-mannered person. And that was what you presented to the entire listening world, that this is how we operate. We don't care who we insult as long as we come out looking like, the creme de la creme. No, I never talked about it. Thanks for your question, Lincoln. I hope I answered some part of it. Ma'at from New York, you're on the air.
Yes. Greetings to the beloved family. I like
Thank
to
you.
make 2 points about whatever you want to call it. I tend to agree with you.
we don't know what to call it.
Really, first of all, and I'm going to listen tonight too, but watch it tonight too. But it was exhausting. The idea of having 60 seconds and then a rebuttal of 30 seconds. It just makes it such a mush. To take in, and it was exhausting. But I want to make the point about Bernie taking on Jake Tapper, I think his name is,
Yes.
regarding, he made a good point, because the framing of the questions, who gets to make up these questions, and of course they didn't include, as they do sometimes, question from the public, but the around healthcare, when he's saying, well, what's your thought about middle class tax cuts? He was in the box that doesn't even deal with what the essential question is, in that single payer would be much, much less, because you wouldn't have the billions raked in by the third party insurance companies. And Bernie made an excellent point around that, how that would be used in the upcoming commercial. At some point, Don Lemon, who was the only black person there, in terms of the panel and the moderators, he asked a question about race. And I thought we got some very interesting responses. Marion Williamson, she says she doesn't need another study or commission. She has a set, and I don't know the full details, but she mentioned the policy that she's fleshed out somewhere from 200 to 500 billion, and she spoke about it as a debt. And we know about Robinson's book on that.
Exactly. All of these things were borrowed.
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
And
for all of her enthusiasm, is not an expert in economics, and particularly economics relating to reparations. And that is why it proves my point. There was no need for reporters as interlopers. What are you doing there? The contestants have the ability to ask other contestants questions. They don't need an interpreter. They don't need to be shepherded through the answer or response to a question. Leave them alone. Get out. Get off the stage. They shouldn't have been there.
And I just want to lastly say that Beto made an excellent point, because I recently read about a voicer in the Daily News saying, well, I'm against reparations because when I came here as an immigrant, it was way after slavery, had nothing to do with it. He actually went into the fact that the reason why you have the wealthiest country and a very built-up country is because of what happened to African descendants, and he went into, the kidnap.
Let me just do this because we're running out of time. Don't fall for any of that stuff. It was a question that was raised for a specific reason, to say, well, look, here's one for the blacks. And as if that question properly belonged to one of the candidates. Let them ask the question. Let them ask each other these questions, and let's hear the responses. You do need a moderator, but we do not need representatives of a compromised media organization that is hosting the debate, also asking questions. This is not for you. This is not for you. What, do you think that people are incapable of asking intelligent questions of each other? Get out of it. Get off the stage.
Yes,
people have
that's
such
a
need for recognition. So it's a disaster from that point of view. And they have to fix it. They have to work on it and fix it, because they have found a very subtle way of getting away with ignoring real issues. And those real issues should be contestants in this race asking other contestants in the race, and then finally having a portion of the so-called debates for the public to ask questions. But this charade that they're going on with, calling it a debate, it's a farce. And we should say so loudly. It's a farce. And it should not continue, because in the end it becomes a cynical exercise. They know what they're doing. It's about money. Come election time, there will be a representative of the elected official meeting with the advertising department. And then they discuss millions of dollars in advertising, and the proof is, look what we did. Look how we handled this public relations matter, and we called it a debate. You got to give us some kind of money for the things that we did. This is how it will end up. Thanks, Maat. I'm so sorry we couldn't have a longer time with each other today. Thank you very much for calling in. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.